This morning, I was getting in the elevator in the hotel, and I was trying to think of what I was going to say today. You know, there's a board meeting today. There's this opening, and it's been a hard year. It's been a tough year for science and scientists in this country, and I was sort of down, to be honest. And I'm not a down person. I'm an optimist. I got on the elevator this morning. And I got on with a young man who's one of the American Junior Academy of Science students. And in the 25 seconds that we were on that elevator, I asked one question. I said, "What's your project?" And if you could have seen him light up, and he's from Tennessee, and I apologize, I cannot remember your name. He's from Tennessee, and we had a great conversation about just the little 30-second conversation about the science he's doing. And you know, I didn't even catch the punchline because we had to keep on going. But I have to tell you that excitement, that creativity, that potential is the reason why so many of us this past year have been protecting science, strengthening science, even when it's been under attack and been challenged. And so last year, from this stage, at this very moment in time, in Boston, we had a conversation about where the world was headed. And it was early days. It was really early days. It was the days before we saw all the devastation to some of our science agencies by DOGE. It was a time before the president's budget request decided it was going to cut science by half. Half. And you know, when I testified in front of the Senate Appropriations Committee this year, what I said was, if we actually made that happen, if we did that, we'd be forfeiting the future. We'd be forfeiting the inheritance that the students from the American Junior Academy of Science deserve, or the undergraduates in this room deserve, or the graduate students in this room deserve, because they are doing that not for scientists. It's not for scientists. It's for the country. It's for the world. As Michael talked about, we have things we have to deliver. We have things we have to deliver, and we've done it for decades and generations. Decades and generations. We're always great about talking about it, but we are extraordinary at doing it. It's the greatest engine of innovation and creativity and well-being that the world's ever known. And y'all are a part of it. We're all a part of it. And so what's happened over this last year? My job here in the next couple minutes is to tell you where we've been and what I think is coming. Where have we been? So over that last year, there were many things that came at the scientific community. And I have to tell you, I was blown away by the students that I met as I traveled the country. Whether I was in Kansas or Tennessee, North Carolina or California, I met students with incredible resilience. They wanted to do the science that they thought was important, not because they wanted funding, not because they wanted an accolade, but because they thought it would deliver for the nation, for the world. And when I see that resilience, when I see that energy that bubbles up in our graduate students, in our undergrads, in our faculties around the country, and in companies around the country, I'm blown away. And so over the course of that year, many groups, many organizations, patient advocates from around the country, scientists from labs, people in grassroots organizations came together and pushed back on those really random, haphazard cuts to science. And what we saw was bipartisan support in Congress for science. Muscle memory kicked in. We remembered that we live in a moment, when you take back all the headlines, we live in a moment when we know more about the universe, this planet, and ourselves than we've ever known before. And that we are on the cusp of even greater things. One of the things that is just wild to me is that we know that there are 2-kilometer-high mountains of ice on Pluto. I can't get over that. I still can't get over that. I can't get over the fact that we know that there's methane dust sprinkled on top of those 2-kilometer-high mountains of ice. I can't get over the fact that there are people who have been cured of sickle cell anemia. I can't get over the fact that there are grandmothers with cystic fibrosis. Those are miracles. Those are miracles created by scientists and the people that support science. It's a miracle to me. And when I had to get in front of appropriators, what I told them is that story starts with an appropriation. It starts with funding. It starts with the ability to do science. And that comes from the support of the American people. And what we found over this last year is that when we create a collective voice, when patients come together, when scientists come together, when communities come together, we actually can push back on attacks on science. But I got to tell you, flat funding isn't an end. It is not an end. In fact, it's nothing really to celebrate. What it is a runway. It gives us a chance now to see what comes next. And I don't know how many of y'all saw the speech by Prime Minister Carney from Canada at the World Economic Forum, but he said something that, he was talking about geopolitics, and he said that we are not in a transition, we're in a rupture. This is a rupture, not a transition. Now look, I don't know much about geopolitics, but what I can tell you about science is it certainly applies. What happened over the course of the last year is a rupture. We're not going back. It's not possible. Too much damage has been done. Too much has changed. There's an entire generation of scientists that have a scar that is not going to go away. But you know, scars can make us tougher. Scars can become almost shields to build resilience. And I, for one, and many others that I've talked to, believe that the next thing to do is to build what comes next. And what does that mean? Over the course of the next year, yeah, we're going to have to fight for that funding and make sure that it stays because there are a lot of people attacking it. We also have to realize that there are policies that are being put upon the scientific enterprise and the scientific ecosystem that are damaging. Whether it's political interference, whether it's the lack of scientific evidence in policy making. You know, a year ago, I stood up here and I said that RFK Jr. was the wrong person for the job at HHS. I still feel that way. I also know that there are battles yet to be fought. And I know that we can't do it alone. None of this is about one person, none of this is about one organization. It is about the enterprise speaking together. And so here's my admonition to you. We have one of the, we're in a time in our lives that we're going to remember forever. We're going to remember them forever. And I remember when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, I thought, I remember reading Francis Fukuyama, The End of History. I remember thinking, man, I missed it. I missed it. I missed those important times when the future stood on the head of a pin. We had to make a decision about where to go next. Well, we didn't miss it. We're in it. We are in it. We're in the rupture. We are in that rupture. And what does that mean? It means that we have to build what comes next. And it's going to take passion. It's going to take creativity. We need a new burst of creativity. In 1945, when Vannevar Bush talked about the endless frontier, that was a burst of creativity. It's time for another. We are at that rupture. And it's going to take protests. It's going to take politics. It's going to take the ability to not speak gibberish. All of that has got to come together if we're going to fight for the inheritance of the Enlightenment to continue to make our world a better place. If we're going to continue to make sure that technology helps heal disease, if we're going to continue to make sure that the world gets smaller so that we can become colleagues and friends the world over. There are people from 45 nations here at this meeting. 45 nations. Our collaborators, our friends, our colleagues. We recognize that if we're going to cure disease, if we're going to find out what's on Europa, if we're going to see what's under the ice in Ganymede, we're going to have to do that with collaborators around the world. If we're going to find out what the molecular machinery of Alzheimer's is and how we're going to cure it, we're going to do that. And I don't care if the cure comes from Brussels or Beijing or Boston or Phoenix. That doesn't bother me. I will celebrate it. I will celebrate it. But I know that it's going to come a lot later if the United States of America is not investing in science the way that it has over the last 80 years. And so we've got to work together. I'm going to look for you all to help us put that passion to work. Let us work with our colleagues in community. Because look, we are scientists. And Neil Lane said something to me that was really extraordinary. He said, Sudip, scientists are a lot like people. You know what? Scientists are of our communities. And that's what Neil was getting at. He wants us to be of our communities. When science came under attack, when institutions of higher education came under attack, where was the outcry? Where was the worry? Where was the anger in our communities that surround those institutions? It wasn't there. Where was the outcry from industry? It wasn't there. We have to build those relationships. That is on us. And we have to do it to make sure that science is of high integrity, that we are accountable for that high integrity. We have to do it to make sure that we are communicating science in a way that is humble, that takes into account the things that we don't know for sure. And we have to make sure that people see the passion and the creativity with which we speak, that they understand that we are here for them. We are here for them. And so as we go through this next year, as we go through this meeting, I'm going to ask you to collect the pieces. Collect the pieces that are going to allow you to do whatever it is that is in your wheelhouse. If you can write a letter to your local paper, do that. If you can protest in the streets, do that. If you can be a part of politics without being partisan, do that. We have a lot of work to do to make sure that the country, our communities, and even our families understand the value of this thing that we call science. Because this organization has been around for 178 years. The Enlightenment has been 500 years. Our time since Vannevar Bush has been 80 years. We owe it to the AAAS students. We owe it to the undergrads in this room. We owe it to our communities to ensure that science continues to deliver for everybody. And so thank you all for being here. Thank you all for supporting science. Thank you all for the contributions that you made last year to protect science and the contributions that you're going to make this year to protect science. Thank you all.